Hi there. So now unpacked is a bottle of Conservator's Choice Leather Restorer and Reviver. Now I'm going to read the letter that's come with it from a chap called Michael from Squonkantiques. Now they've been selling high-end antiques. Now obviously an antique could be a chaise longue with the leather in it, could be upholstery, handbags and that sort of thing, which would require a restorative approach to it. Now there could be leather cleaners out there that would be suitable for a tack shop, so for horse saddles. When you start using the word conservator, that to me moves it up a level, because you're looking at something more on a museum level, where you do a very considered approach to considering what the product is, what its materials are, not restoring it in a way that is only at a temporary measure. You're trying to make the thing last as long as you possibly can, and then also that it's in some way reversible, because in the future better techniques come to the fore. And if you've done something that has a very permanent seal on something, you wouldn't be able to remove that top coat in order to, in 50 years time, when a better product or technique comes out, you'd be destructive in a way to then impart a new technique. So when you're looking at conservators, we're talking, when you discover something that's for conservator, it's another level. It would be more gentle on the actual material, be it wood, leather, metal, but then would also, it can be reapplied. It does restore it. It does keep its life inside whatever product or on the surface of it. It's just a better sort of level of thing than simply this is for using for leather if it was in a tack shop, as it say. So here's a few words from Mike of the literature that came with the restorative. It's sort of a milky fluid in a bottle. So hi Scott. Now what happened was I got forwarded via a viewer to contact this chap, and then he sent me the bottle. Hi Scott, thank you so much for considering our product review on your YouTube channel. Okay, always interested that someone's going to take the Wessex challenge, because I'm not simply going to go and fawn all over it. I'm going to give it pretty fair appraisal. Okay, the Conservator's Choice Conservator. Okay, quite simply one of the best leather cleaning and reviving solutions on the market. Cleaning and reviving. We have now for the first time introduced this product, having used it for our conservation and restoration business since 1985. 23 plus 15. Okay, so knocking on 40 years. So after many years, thanks to glowing reviews, amazing results and customer demand, we've decided to produce it for those who wish to care for their valued leather goods. Okay, from early Victorian chaise longue, okay, to dry and cracked leather 1920 satchel, the Conservator's Choice has saved them all from certain demise. The Conservator's leather cleaner and reviver can be used on leather and faux leather, discourage on suede, nubuck and aniline leather. So obviously for knife makers and leather, this apparently is totally fine. Right, safe to use on horse tack, saddles, sofas, armchairs, bags, seats, shoes, etc. Obviously test on discreet air before use. And here's the thing that I always like the sound of. If you remember, I've moved to a certain product over straight neat's foot, because straight neat's foot does possibly in time, there was sort of an alkaline acidic problem with neat's foot, so I went to something else. But there are a few chemicals in a product I reverted to, but in my view and all the literature, I moved away from neat's foot onto the other product because that was superior and longer lasting, and had more of a retention within the leather fibres. It stayed in there rather than seeped away, so that's why I moved to the other product. This one here says it's chemical free, whereas that has a minuscule amount of formaldehyde and some benzene in it. California don't like formaldehyde. So this is 100% chemical free and only uses 100% natural ingredients. So we're talking whatever creams, juices, waxes, or it's 100% natural. Okay, his credentials: he has a BA Honours in Art and Design and Furniture Restoration and Conservation, and a background selling high-end antiques since 1985. So there's the history of that, 30 plus years. We have just introduced his trusted leather cleaner, and other products will be available soon, including a furniture cleaner protector and a chandelier mirror and glass cleaner. All the products are 100% natural, not tested on animals, safe to use around the home, and please find enclosed a discount for 15% off his website price of £13.50. So you get 15% off that, which will be a couple of quid, so it's just over a tenner for that, and that will last a month for the average leather maker. And the discount will be available until the 31st of May, and there's a website link there. Hope you like the product. I look forward to seeing your review. Kind regards, Michael. Okay, so let's have a look at it. Okay, so there's the bottle. It's got a milky consistency, so it should get onto cloths and into the leather nicely. Directions for use: shake well, dab a small amount onto a clean sponge. I usually use a tea towel, whatever. Leave for 20 minutes and you should be able to buff lightly using this clean soft cloth. Manufacturing date of November last year. Do not ingest. Okay, so right, so undo the child-proof lid thing. Has a linseed kind of lilt to it. Okay, yeah, it's quite a creamy consistency. I'm going to test it on one of my pieces of leather first. So I'm going to go onto the bottom where the tail fin is. And go, so I've gone up about 6 inches. So I'm going to come back in 20 minutes, give you the results. Okay, so that's where I stopped there. And then here it's got 2 coats. So I added another coat up to there. As you can see, it's still got a bit of a sheen. That was 1 coat, 2 coats up to about there. You can probably just about see a difference in buff. So what I'm going to do now is, in sheen, what I'm going to do now is buff it with a cloth, and then see if it sheds water in any way. Okay, so what the buffing has done is removed the sheen, but not necessarily remove the product, if that makes sense. So I have some water. So that's where it's not treated. Seems to stay there. scuffs off with no marks. You're going to know. So, don't know what it's like for outdoors. Let's put some different thing on just to test the differences. Obviously it's a cleaner and it may not necessarily be a top coat, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that on the bottom half of where I put the wax to make sure there's no real strange reaction of a top coat of carnauba with the restorative one underneath. So I dare say this will be a direct replacement for that, which is a restorative feedy thing, and this is a more of a top coaty like what that would be. These are my standards, so that or that top coat. What I was using, which contains formaldehyde and some benzene or something, but not acidic like neat's foot, as in only neat's foot was, which is why I went for that beforehand. So come back in a bit. Okay, so that section now has carnauba cream on it. You see it slightly runs away with the carnauba cream, so I dare say not so much a outdoor weather shedding top layer. This is for the feed restorative effect. Okay, so that's that done. Right, I'm going to do a piece of leather now on an old one that I had done for a restore job on the blade. So just going to test inside the belt loop to make sure it's okie dokie. Should be fine. I'll just straight in. Okay, I'll come back and do the whole thing. I've checked it. Right. As you work it in, you get a lovely sort of deep colour coming through. Nice. Still not used to the smell yet. It's odd. It's not an odour I've really associated with leather. It's like it's got a sort of putty linseed sort of, just a hint to it. It could well be. It's got a linseed base. But the little bit that was in the cloth keeps, you can see it's invigorating the bit that you're on. You just keep going over and over it. Nice. Nice. Now, one thing about a heavy wax sort of treatment, you do end up with wax going down holes of stitching into corners, into inner corners of tooling, and collecting and giving it a sort of a white candle wax sort of look. But this has no sort of residual effect at all. It just goes in. And yeah, definitely it gets absorbed by the leather. And I say the part on the cloth that's had it, you don't need much more, and you can still keep, and every time you put it backwards and forwards, you're still, you can see a difference, even though you thought you haven't got anything left in the cloth. If that makes sense. It's still, it looks like it's sort of buffing up in terms of a shine. So it goes a long way, and it's easier than a waxy one. So the fact that it's milky allows it to get into your leather. Yeah, that's in. Yeah, sort of a low sheen finish. But what I like is it goes in evenly. So you don't want a lot of fault when you're doing the trick. You just want to make sure you put it in and then go in and let it rest. So that's a nice point to it. Okay, what else can we do? Okay, now these are not even wet formed and glued, so I haven't got a strap on or anything, nothing stitched. It's just literally had the welt bonded on, so it's still got the streaks across as I've just daubed in a load of black dye. What does it look like? How does that even it up from that? Does it improve the look? So obviously backwards and forwards with the dauber for the leather. Quite a drying effect sometimes I find the dye has done, so a few applications, I dare say. It's evened it up already. That's one. See if it feels more supple. No, not perceptibly. Undone, not done. Sort of evened it up. this is a few days later, okay, with snow and everything, and I've allowed it to settle, so you may be able to see that's what happens after a day or two left alone. So when it says directions of use, shake well, you need to shake it to mix up whatever the oil carrier is in there with the rest of the ingredients. So what I've got now is a raw piece of veg tan leather, and I'm just going to put it straight in, so it'll give you an idea of the difference in colour, the depth of the colour of the difference when it does. So just to show you a difference. Wow, it soaks straight in. So much went in that end, there's not enough left in the cloth to do that end. That's how much it would appear that the leather wanted it. You get used to the feel of the leather in time. So there's a fair amount on the cloth. Done the other end now, back across. Well, that's going deep. I wonder if it will slick an edge. That's an idea. So we'll let that dry. I will then bevel. I'll bevel that edge just quite straight, and then only use this and a slicker to slit the edge, just to maybe save you time, to see if that does anything. So there is the difference in colour. So straight veg tan, and then with two applications, as it were, of the cleaner. That's virtually usable now. That's gone in, straight in. Ooh, right, let's bevel some edges a minute.
Okay. Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's done it. I mean, you can do it with water, but why not feed the edge? Ah. Okay, and then of course, let's just say that you'd had a batch that you'd already coated, and then you had an order for one that was dyed. So instead of dyeing it and then you do the shorted cleaner, you had this and then someone wanted a black one. Let's dye it and just, or tan one or whatever, and just make sure that you don't get any weird streaking or anything. No, just go straight in anyway. Yep. Because you never know. Yep. So you can put that on first and then dye it. And hardly any comes off. So it doesn't stop dye going on or staying in. Yep. Very good. Now a few final do's and don'ts. So what I've done, because I just think, you know, just additional things, I've emailed Michael. So room temperature, I'm sort of like in the middle of the house, my room, and it's constantly 20 degrees ish. 20 degrees. Okay, so winter, summer goes up to about 23. It's quite stable. So room temperature advised, room temperature, that sort of thing. He says, yeah, room temperature, although his workshop does get a little cold. He hasn't noticed any adverse effects on it. But just, you know, think room temperature. Store in a cool, dry place. And I mentioned shelf life. Now, for me, I'm not the most prolific maker, so I would have thought a bottle that big would last me 18 months. He seems, yeah, fine. He would suggest a 2-year shelf life. So most makers, that would be the life of what the bottle would be anyway. So it shouldn't be a case of it's up on the shelf and, you know, 6 months later it's unusable. Simply a case of shaking it back up again. I did ask about sunlight, and he would suggest keep out of direct sunlight. So if you're in a workshop with a big window coming in, just pop it in a cupboard out of the way of direct sunlight. And then my question was for a top coat, because obviously this is feeding the leather-ish. This is restoring the leather, but it's not necessarily a top coat. So this is a restorative element rather than a specifically protective cream. All right, so what he uses on the furniture and the bags, whatever, is 100% beeswax, but there shouldn't be a problem with carnauba, sort of a natural wax finish. But he would advise testing whatever you do use. As I say, when it's been on the shelf for a fair while, you saw it did separate after a day or two. Get the lid on and give it a good shake and really get all the varying things in there mixed back up again. So to me it seems very easy to use. It goes in great. I have actually slicked an edge reasonable with it, so you could do that as well, and feed the edge rather than just use water. Dyed and then you put it in, or you put it in and then you dye it. Didn't seem to make any difference. It was totally fine. It seems to be great using carnauba afterwards. He uses beeswax. Just think room temperature, give it a good shake, keep out of direct sunlight. I'll leave the code in the description. Thanks to Michael for sending it. I've done the usual. I've done far more tests than just simply putting it in the leather. But you know, it's supple. There's no sort of real cracks or whatever. Does exactly what it says on the tin, and it's, as I say, to me, when I read about it, it's a conservator's well, it says conservator's choice. To me it would seem it's something that's slightly elevated and solely something that is for horse tack and things like that, just leather. It's for you know, preserving the leather and a clean. So here's a close look at it. So huge thanks again to Mike for sending it down, and the chap who got us in touch together. Great idea. It seems to be spot on to what I'm looking for in something that will protect the leather and give it as much chance as possible to be heirloom, lifetime quality. Obviously for my customers, and I want to pass it on to anybody else as well. So I shall be using this move going forward. I'll give my feedback how I got on with it, but so far it just seems easy to use. It is my thing. It just goes straight in, whoosh, and then I can move on to the next task. And it looks like I can get a third of the slicking done as well, and I've fed it into the edge, which seems, you know, always beneficial. And of course I know that I've fed the edge before I've slicked it over, because once you slick it there isn't much opportunity to get food in, so I have fed the edge, which is cool. Thanks again for everybody joining me. Thanks to the Patreon support. I'll leave the code below, which is online till the end of May, if I remember. Thank you. Scott Wessex Blades out with this Conservator's Choice. Thank you. See you on the next one.